This is the In Focus podcast from The Hindu.
Hello and welcome to the Hindus in Focus podcast. I'm Zabeda Hamid, your host for today. On June 5th this year, when NASA astronauts Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams flew the Boeing Starliner crew capsule to the International Space Station, they expected to be back within about 8 days. Now, however, these seasoned astronauts will remain in space for 8 months until February 2025. What happened? Their capsule, which was on its first flight with a human crew, was deemed not safe enough to bring them back after helium leaks and other malfunctions developed. Eventually, the Starliner capsule returned to Earth without its crew. Barry and Sunita are now scheduled to return in a SpaceX crew capsule next year. So, what happened to the Boeing Starliner? Who is on the ISS now, and is there enough space and adequate supplies for all of them? What happens to the bodies of astronauts who stay in space for extended durations, and how does it affect their health? When will the ISS be decommissioned, and will India be part of the next new ISS? We delve into these questions and more with T.V. Venkateshwaran, a science communicator and visiting faculty member at the Indian Institute of Science Education and Research, Mohali. Hello and welcome to the Hindus in Focus podcast, Professor Venkateshwaran.
Yeah, thank you. Hello to all listeners.
So, Professor, could you start by explaining to us the 8-day journey of Sunita Williams and Barry Wilmore has now become an 8-month journey with their return scheduled for February 2025. Could you talk to us about what went wrong and what has led to this extended stay?
Okay, so before that, I want to say something that many people think that they are stranded, they are stuck, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what most media kind of paint. But one ex astronaut had said that if I was in their position, I would be very happy if I can extend my stay. I mean, every person's dream is to extend their stay. And I think I'm sure Sunita Williams and Barry Wilmore are not unhappy that they are not come back, but they are extending their stay. So that's first thing. What actually happened was that NASA had commissioned two private players to develop spacecraft which can ferry people from Earth to International Space Station. Earlier, NASA had this space shuttle. We all know that the space shuttle developed problems, and then there was explosion with the loss of life. So after that, NASA discontinued using the space shuttle, and it didn't have an alternate means of taking people to International Space Station. Until recently, NASA has been relying on the Russian Soyuz craft to reach ISS, and NASA wanted to develop alternative, so it approached two private players, one Elon Musk and second this Boeing. They were supposed to create a craft which will take people to ISS and bring them back. And Elon Musk company SpaceX developed one craft, and then Boeing created the Starliner. The Starliner was supposed to make its maiden journey with human crew. It was supposed to reach the International Space Station on June 5, which it did. And then they were supposed to stay there for a few days and then come back by mid June. But then, when the maiden flight of this Starliner craft was docked with ISS, they found that there are some malfunctionings, particularly the helium tank was leaking. So, what is this helium tank? Why that is a big issue? I think we need to understand why NASA and everybody was seriously worried about this issue. See, if you have a scooter on Earth, your petrol tank is above the engine. The petrol will flow from the tank to the engine because of pull of the Earth's gravity. So, if you are in space, you are in a situation called as a free fall. Most of would say that there is no gravity. That is not technically correct. It's a free fall. So, which means that the fuel tank will not move from fuel tank to the engine on its own. You need to push it. So for pushing it, you use helium, and then you push the helium into the fuel tank, and then the helium pushes the fuel to the engine. That's what happens. Now, if there is a leak in the helium tank, which means that the amount of fuel that will be pushed may not be what you wanted. So it essentially means that you will not be able to properly, let's say, navigate your craft. There may be a problem. So that's why they were all worried. It's like, for example, you have a scooter and then you are not able to turn the scooter's handlebar. Okay, I mean, then you are in a big trouble, right? I mean, when you are driving, maybe there is a pothole or a huge boulder, you can't turn, then you'll have to crash, right? So that's what was feared. Thankfully, of course, the Starliner came back. That's a different issue. But due to this technical flaw, NASA decided that it didn't want to risk, and then it asked the crew members to stay in the ISS. So now they will return. They will become part of, both of them will become part of the Expedition 72, which is supposed to commence from 24th of September, and then they will stay there till February, and then they will come back.
That was very clear. Thank you, Professor. Tell us a little bit about the ISS itself. How well equipped is it to handle, and how many astronauts are there on board at present?
Yeah, see, ISS, if you look at the living space, it's like a big six-bedroom villa. I mean, it can house a number of people. In fact, in 2009, a record number of 13 people lived in the station. Normally, you will have six people, and when there is a crew exchange, meaning that one ship goes there, and then new people join there, and the old people are expected to come. That for 1 or 2 days, there'll be more than six people. At this point of time, there are about nine people. Okay, so it's not big issue. Although there are only six beds, basically like a cubicle which is used as bed. It's like a telephone booth, but you can always add extra beds. That's not a problem. With regard to supplies, for example, food or oxygen, there is a constant resupply. I mean, resupply ships, cargo ships, which doesn't carry crew but only material, are flown to International Space Station. In August there were two such cargo ships. In the beginning of August, there was a Cygnus NG-21, American cargo ship, that took something close to about 3,800 kilograms of cargo, which included some replacement computers, fuel, food, personal material for crew members, and so on. And then in the mid of August, there was a Progress MS-28, which is a Russian cargo ship that carried close to about 950 kilogram of propellant, about 420 kilogram of water, 50 kilogram of nitrogen, and many other materials. So there is a constant supply of fresh food, preserved food, fruits. I mean, this constantly is supplied to the ship. So, with regard to food or clothing or oxygen, there is never a major problem. It's always in plentiful.
That's good to hear. Tell us now a little bit about what happens to the health of the astronauts. That's been one of the concerns that have been raised, as in what happens to their bodies when they spend such a long amount of time in space, and what measures are taken to counter these negative health effects.
Okay, so usually what happens is that the International Space Station follows certain regime. I mean, like the ground controllers control what you are supposed to do, every moment. It's not actually every moment. Your waking hours are from morning 6 o'clock till night 10 o'clock. So in between, every 15 minutes is made into a time chunk, and the ground controllers tell you what you are supposed to do. It may be something to do with research. It may be cleaning up the space station, or maybe you have to go through certain exercise, or maybe you have to sleep, you have to eat. I mean, like that. There is a procedure that is instructed from ground, and then you are expected to follow. Basically, what happens is that when you are standing on Earth, because of the Earth's gravity, uh, I mean, our legs experience slightly more gravity than our head. Okay, and because of that, blood flows towards our leg. There is a bit less of blood in our upper part of the body. But when you go to space, suddenly the blood comes everywhere. So, I mean, it takes some time for you to adjust to it. Second, our backbone is generally in the shape of a stretched S, English letter S. But when you go to space, because there is no gravitational pull, the backbone kind of becomes nearly straight. So then you are a few inches tall, few centimeters tall when you are in space, right? All this have some effect. I mean, like the bone doesn't feel weight, so the bone loses its rigidity and things of that kind if you stay for a long time in space. And because of that, people have designed specific exercises. That is, exercises to strengthen your bone, exercises to ensure that the blood flows all over your body, and so on. So the ground controllers give a schedule for everybody. There is a exercise pods. So which pod who will use at what time, so that everyone in the space station is given the necessary amount of exercises to keep their body fit and perfect. So this scheduling becomes bit complicated when there are more number of people. That's all. Otherwise, it's like anybody else. It's not like there is an extra health issue of Sunita Williams or others. Basically, everyone who goes to the space station stays there for at least 6 months. Some of them have even stayed for more than 300 days. So, in that sense, I mean, what Sunita Williams is experiencing now is not very extraordinary, right? Yeah.
Is there more research that's needed in this area, looking at what the health effects are?
Yeah, it is the research is continuing. I mean, see, we don't know. It's a unknown, right? So basically, from the day one when the first human being went to space, Yuri Gagarin, the space medicine has been growing steadily. We have been collecting data for people who lived there for short time, people who have lived there for long time, various kinds of data. And based on that data, we are improving our knowledge every day. That's how the current understanding has come. In fact, if you are looking at traveling to Mars, I mean, you may have to spend like about a year in space. So, I mean, this work is work in progress. I mean, whatever we know today, based on that, we have developed some regimen, like exercise regimen and all that. But otherwise, our knowledge needs further improvement.
Talk to us a little bit. You said that, of course, that this isn't the first time that a journey into space has been extended for longer than it was meant to be, correct? So, what are the other notable instances when this has happened? You talked about people spending over 300 days in space. Who has done that?
Yeah. So the first time when this kind of extended stay happened due to certain technical reasons. See, if you extended days for few days because of let's say ground condition like storm and etc., so that you can't land. That's very normal. I mean, like your launch may be delayed by few days, your return may be delayed by few days. One doesn't talk too much about it. But if you're looking at very extended stay, I mean, like many weeks, months, and so on, the first time it happened was in 1979, way back in 1979. That time, the Soviet Union was having a space station called Salyut, which is much, much smaller than International Space Station. And then there were two cosmonauts, Vladimir Lyakov and Valery Ryumin. They were expected to spend about 108 days and then come back to Earth. But the replacement ship, the ship which was supposed to carry the replacement crew, developed a problem and it didn't reach the space station. So they had to stay there for a longer time. Although the craft which took them was attached to the Salyut, they could have come back. The Soviet controllers said that let's not take risk. Let's do a complete thorough study, and then only when we find it is safe, let's bring them back. And then, in fact, what they did is that they detached that module and then brought back without crew. They sent a empty spacecraft and then brought them back. So ultimately, instead of 108 days, they spent 175 days in space. Okay, this first incident. Actually, the incident involving Sergei Kryelkov is really tragic. Okay, so he went to the Mir station. It's a second space station that the Soviet Union had built, slightly bigger than Salyut. He went there in May 1991. Okay, May 1991, he reached Mir Station. He was supposed to spend some time over there, about 150 days, and then come back. But then there were political turmoil happening in Soviet Union, and Soviet Union got dissolved in December 26, 1991. He was stuck there. Not only he and Alexander Volkov, both of them were stuck in space. In fact, one should actually say stuck in space. They volunteered. They volunteered to stay back, saying that if they leave Mir station, then the Mir will decay. So they volunteered to stay back. Ultimately, they came back in March 25, 1992. And Krelko spent something like 311 days, twice the original mission, right? So this was like a slightly more what you can call as tragic because of the political reason that you got stuck. And then when the Columbia tragedy happened, which killed Kalpana Chawla in 2003 with the American space shuttle, the NASA decided that it won't use space shuttle to ferry people. So people who were there in ISS that time got marooned for some time, and then the Soviet Soyuz spacecraft went and then brought them back in after a few months. And then there was also a space accident. See, one of the Soyuz spacecraft which took people to the ISS in 2022 was hit by a tiny space rock, and then it developed a leak. So they didn't use that spacecraft. So alternate spacecraft was sent, and then people came back. So instead of spending 188 days, that crew spent something like 371 days in space. Okay, so compared to that, the time that Sunita and Berry is going to spend is not that long.
So there are record instances of people spending close to a year or sometimes even more, correct?
Yeah, more than that. And then, in fact, all of them were happy. None of them said that we had discussed it. They all said that if you had extended even more, we would have been more happy. I mean, all people who goes to the space station says that we want to stay more. That's
Tell us a little bit about. So, we know now that NASA has asked two private companies, we talked about that. So, basically, Elon Musk's SpaceX as well as Boeing. To build the crafts for them. So, what is the future here because of Boeing's many troubles with this particular craft?
So now, actually, the Expedition 71 is getting wound up, and then Expedition 72 is beginning. Um, so already, Ovchinin and Wagner and Petit, three people have reached, that is, new crew, has reached International Space Station on September 11th aboard Soyuz spacecraft. So they will be part of the Expedition 72. And then two more people, Hak and Gorbunov, will reach the space station on September 25th aboard SpaceX Crew 9. They are expected to arrive there. In fact, original plan is that the SpaceX was supposed to carry four people, but it's carrying only two people. The two seats will be empty, so some dead weight will be put on those seats because you have to manage the balance the weight. So dead weight will be put. So basically, two empty seats are going to the space, right? So this will form the team along with Berry and Sunita. So this 3 plus 2 plus 2. So which means that seven people will be the Expedition 72. And interestingly, Sunita is going to lead the Expedition 72. That's what they have decided. So International Space Station Expedition 72 will be led by Sunita. And February 2025, the Expedition 73 will, the first crew of the Expedition 73 will reach the ISS. That time, aboard the SpaceX, Sunita, Berry, and others will come back. The four people will come back. That's how the current plan is. Now that the Boeing Starliner is not fully functional, only space crew, SpaceX is possible. At this point of time, NASA is managing with that because you need to send a craft only once in 6 months. That provision is available with at present with SpaceX, so they are able to manage. But of course, Soyuz is also sending people constantly. Cargo crafts are there for sending material. Anyhow, the International Space Station is going to be deorbited somewhere in 2025. It will be decommissioned. That means that it will be no longer working. Maybe down the year, 1 year, 2 year, they will shut down the International Space Station. They are planning to build a new space station. So one doesn't know how that new space station will take effect. And there is a possibility that in addition to the current nations which are part of the international space stations setup, possibly maybe India might also become part of that new international space station that may come up.
Is it going to be several years away, or do you think it will happen within the next few years?
No, building an international space station anew will take something like 5 to 10 years minimum. Maybe initially few modules will be built. I mean, it may not be fully equipped to carry so many number of people. Maybe initially it will be skeleton staff of 1 to 2. I mean, usually it will be pair, so about two, and slowly they will add modules and build. At present, there is no exact plan of a timeline, like how, which module, who will build, and so on. So I guess that if the International Space Station is decommissioned, the next one will take something like 5 to 10 years.
And what is India's position to be able to be in a situation where they can join?
Yeah, the current effort of ISRO to build the space station for India in the next few years is essentially to show to the world that we are there. So once you show to the world that we are there, there is a possibility that the other nations would say that let's also take India in. That's how India is part of many international scientific collaboration. I mean, we are part of this ITER, where the fusion research is taking place, 30-meter telescope, and so on and so forth. Wherever we have been able to show a international class technology and our capacity, international players are willing to accept India as a partner, because people are looking for partners. Because none of this can be done by a single country, because it needs huge investment. So, I mean, and of course, if many countries come together with the less cost, each country can benefit. So that's why, I mean, there is this kind of international collaboration. So I think with India's plans for establishing its own space station, slowly we will become part of this new international space station that may come.
Thank you so much for speaking to us today, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
In Focus will be back soon with analysis of the biggest news issues. In the meantime, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and other platforms. Just search for In Focus by The Hindu. We'll see you soon.